Thank you, Molly. Good morning to people joining from the United States. Good afternoon to people joining from Europe. And good evening to colleagues joining from East Africa. And a very good late evening to people joining from Asia. We actually have people from all the 4 continents on this webinar today. Thank you very much for joining. We are all here today to understand the ecosystem of building sustainable enterprises in Kenya. My name is Sanjoy Sanyal, and I'm the Senior Associate of Energy in the World Resources Institute. WRI is a global think tank in the area of environment and development. WRI's work in energy is helping bring entrepreneurial solutions to the market by facilitating investment in these companies, but it is also aimed at helping organizations using these renewable energy solutions to create long-lasting impact in social and economic conditions. Before we start the webinar, we need to thank the 2 organizations who have made this day possible, Dune Foundation and Wallace Global Fund. They have been our friends for a long time, and we thank them for standing with us. The people who work in these organizations are passionate about clean energy, development, and the power of entrepreneurs to solve the world's hard challenges. On behalf of colleagues in WRI, I also thank our partners, the Miller Center at the Santa Clara University and the Shine Campaign. The Miller Center has been training entrepreneurs since 2003. They have trained more than 900 social entrepreneurs who have in turn raised more than $900 million of impact capital. The Shine Campaign is a global campaign that brings together foundations, faith communities, and investors to end energy poverty. Thank you for being with us today. As I said before, the purpose of us being here is to hear 5 individuals who have wide-ranging expertise in investing in Kenyan small and medium enterprises. They will all speak about their organizations and their work, but let me tell you why I find this particular group one of the most exciting people that you'd ever listen to. Our first speaker of the day is Edward Mungia, the CEO of Kenya Climate Innovation Center, and author of a book on impact investing. Our second speaker is Irene Karuga, the CEO of Zohari Leasing, who has built a whole career in leasing, previously with Jami Bora Leasing and NIC Leasing. Our third speaker is Paul Ohaga, who is the Chief Investment Officer of Kenya Climate Ventures, a unique climate-focused fund, and is a veteran of the venture capital and private equity businesses here. Our fourth speaker of the day is Eugene Obiero, who is now an investor in clean energy, but has been working in the consulting of clean energy consulting and energy businesses for a very long time. And our final speaker of the day is Willie Mastermat, who is now in this unique debt capital for entrepreneurs, business partners, but is a career banker with KCB. So without further ado, I would invite Edward to kick off the webinar. And one piece of logistical announcement: if you have a question, please do type it in the chat window, and we would try and get to it at the end of the webinar. We do have 5 speakers, so if we run short of time, then we will make sure to circulate your questions and get you answers. Thank you very much for listening, and I hope you have a great next 1 hour. Edward, over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Sanjoy, for the opportunity, and welcome all. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Well, I'm here to talk a little bit about Kenya Climate Innovation Center and what we are doing. Well, this is actually my day job. I have many other things that I do in the night, hopefully, and probably more specifically in regards to KCIC. Well, we started the journey in 2012 as a World Bank project where we received 4.5 million US dollars for 4 years. And the purpose was really to help Kenyan entrepreneurs, especially those who are coming with clean tech solutions or clean tech businesses, mainly in agriculture, water management, and renewable energy, to be able to scale their innovative businesses. Of course, that was out of the recognition that there were many challenges that were facing those kind of entrepreneurs, and these challenges ranges from access to finance, access to facilities, access to information. Is also about enabling environment, because you realize that all over globally, when you are talking about innovation, well, policy will always be behind innovation. And therefore, it was very important that KCIC should be able to help enterprises to be able to look into the issues of enabling environment, which then would help them to have better policies, and therefore they can be able to sell their products. Well, KCIC, as we speak, have received over 12 million US dollars from the Danish government, which is being used to scale these businesses for the next 5 years until 2020. In attachment to that, Paul is my colleague, and we have a subsidiary, which is Kenya Climate Ventures, and Paul will be talking more about that. But now talking about the stage of business financing and why the offering for KCIC, as I mentioned before, well, it's from the recognition of the challenges that businesses are facing. Sometimes we have people with ideas, sometimes we have businesses which are at a later stage, and our job is really to provide solutions for those businesses. And these solutions will be mainly be based on well, one is financing, and that financing obviously is dependent on the stage at which the company is. And in terms of the programs that we are offering, we have incubation, which is a 12-month program where we start with people with ideas and people who have some thoughts of something which could resolve the challenge of, well, the issue of climate change. And then if we realize that they require some prototyping, they require some sort of funding to be able to pilot it, then we give them what we call proof of concept financing. This is very innovative in the sense that we are the first one to give up to a maximum of 50,000 US dollars, where people can be able to toy with their ideas. If they fail, well, we are okay. If they succeed, we are even more excited, because then we move them to what we call the acceleration program. And within the acceleration program, basically is an investor readiness kind of program where we prepare these enterprises or entrepreneurs to be able to get more capital from the market. And as we do that, we realize that, again, we had a gap, because one of our subsidiaries, and hopefully Paul will be talking about that, we realize that there is many gaps when we send companies to Paul and to other investors for them to be able to be funded. And we thought that to fill that gap, we needed to come up with another innovative instrument, which we call early stage financing mechanism, which is kind of concessionary debt with about 8% to the Kenya shillings compared to the 13 or 14% which banks are offering. And this will help you to test, well, to have more than 2,000 units of sales, and therefore people like KCV and other investors will start looking at you in an interesting way. Well, if you succeed at that level, KCV will be able, obviously, to give you up to a maximum of 750, and Paul will be more better placed to be able to talk about that. Well, since inception, we have had more than 6,000 applications. Out of that, I would say more than 4,000 generate, and then they are kind of scaling. Well, I thought that I would pick a couple of examples of some 3 enterprises, for instance, that we are supporting within clean energy. And one of them is Consumer Choice, which is an interesting case. A gentleman who came already in 2012 with the idea that he can be able to replace kerosene in Kenyan homes, and he was doing that using bioethanol. Unfortunately, at that point, bioethanol was very heavily taxed in the Kenyan tax perspective, and therefore, once you innovations, well, you need to look at the policy issues. So one of the jobs that we needed, of course, is to build his business, but we also needed to work with the policymakers to ensure that the tax regime for that particular product was even more encouraging, and therefore it could be more competitive to kerosene. Well, in 2015, we were very successful after a lot of struggles, a lot of working with like-minded people to ask the government to reprieve some of the tax issues that were facing this particular product. And now Kenya is emerging to have a very interesting new industry, which is about bioethanol. Wherever you go into hotels, you'll find that people are using bioethanol. When you go to homes, people are using it to cook as opposed to in place of kerosene. And it's a new industry which is coming up. Well, the other company is King's Biofuels, which is an interesting one, which is in briquettes, and these have gone through the full chain. What we have done, we have given proof of concept, now we have given ESFM, and we are preparing them to get into the market. Well, they are making about 1.2 tons of briquettes on a daily basis, and they are ready for big investment. Well, Afford is a little bit interesting because it's a microfinance with an innovation for access to energy. Basically, it's a microfinance which is enabling Kenyans to have access to energy. So in that case, we thought that we had a responsibility to support them so that then they can be able to reach to more customers. And they have received an ESFM of about $50,000, which is a resort-based kind of financing that we have put together for them. Well, over the years, and what we obviously make very good promises to our donors so that then we can be able to get to be financed. And that leads to the kind of impacts that we have seen over the years from the operation of KCIC. I think one very interesting one is that over the years, we have leveraged financial support for these businesses up to a maximum of $45 million, meaning that we have seen private equity funds, impact funds, putting money into enterprises that we have supported to the tune of 45 million. This is a great story just to say that, well, we just need to support these businesses so that they can go through the valley of death. And once they are over the valley of death, many people are willing to support them. As you can see, this is about 4 times the resources that we have within KCIC. Of course, we have created close to 3,000 jobs, which is also very interesting for our donors because they want us to make social impact also. And those are green jobs, but I must say that they are full-time equivalent jobs. So there is an issue that some of them are casual jobs, but then you have rounded them up to become, or you have used a formula to make them full-time jobs. Well, as I said, we have about 104 businesses which are successful. We have mitigated close to over 1 million tons of CO2. And this is the stories that the donors want. This is the stories that make us go to work every day, seeing that we have more than 360 customers which are being supported by the enterprises that we are supporting within KCIC. And therefore, well, we seems to be in a better place, and we seems to be attracting a little bit of finance to support this cause. And I think it's something that we should continue because there is a huge gap that we are resolving to try and moving these clean tech businesses from valley of death to where they can be able to scale. Of course, there are many challenges which faces these businesses, and the way we have modeled our business, our KCIC business, is based on trying to address the challenges that entrepreneurs are facing. For instance, one of the challenges and one of the services that we provide is advisory services. And we do this for free, at least for the first 12 months, from the support of our donors. And the understanding is that many people will have brilliant ideas, but they are not business people. So it is up to us to try and help them to build their businesses by providing mentorship services, by offering them specialized training, and also looking into their businesses and providing them with toolkits, making their businesses bankable, and so that then they can be able to be attractive to investors. Of course, the next piece, which is also something that we are providing, is financing. And financing for us is very innovative in the sense that we start from the in-kind support I just talked about, where we provide services for free. Then it move on to the second level, which is proof of concept. And not everybody will be able to get proof of concept because this is for people who have ideas and they want to prove those ideas. If you have proven your idea, then you don't qualify for proof of concept. And of course, there's a criteria that you use to be able to benchmark that and to see who is possibly attracting that or is eligible for this money. Well, after that, then we move on to the second or the third phase of financing, which is early stage financing. And this could be for those with a little bit of revenue, or they have some products and now they want to scale, say to up to 2,000 units, for instance, of cook stoves, just to make sure that They are demonstrating to other financiers that this is actually a possibility. Well, beyond that, then we have KCV, which then Paul will be able to take care of some of these enterprises. And we are not exclusive to KCV. We also talk to other investors, and we can be able to provide pipeline to them. Access to facilities is very important, and we have office space, we have hot desking, but I think more important is that we provide access to things like design, things like prototyping. We also provide them with things like optimizing of their products. Like, for instance, if you are making a cook stove, we'll be able to help you to optimize that cook stove. Enabling environment, as I said before, I think this is the biggest, or this is the elephant in the room as far as I'm concerned in terms of the enterprises that you're supporting, because in many instances we have seen people coming with products, but they can't be able to sell those products because the policy, there is no standards, there is no policy which is regulating how they should be sold because they are new products. And therefore, in that case, then it is my responsibility to work with government and like-minded people to ensure that we have proper enabling environment for them where they can be able to sell. Well, finally, access to information. We help them to gather and package and disseminate the information on various technologies about the markets, about what is making sense, and this therefore then resolves their challenges, and hopefully they can be able to scale. Well, Sanjay, I think I want to stop at that point.
Thank you very much. Irene.
Thank you, WRI, for inviting me for this session. I'm Irene Karuga, the CEO of Zohari Leasing. So Zohari Leasing is a wholly owned subsidiary of Centum Investment Group. Centum is actually a large investment company within Kenya that is listed in our Nairobi Securities Exchange and also in the Uganda Securities Exchange. Why this topic is of interest to us, I believe we are one of the few leasing companies who have embraced clean energy as one of the solutions that we want to offer to this market. And also one of our related entities actually invested in a 1.2 megawatt solar solution. And we felt that having had that experience based on from one of our related entities, we thought it was a good opportunity for Zohari to also tap into a slightly different market from what typical leasing companies target in terms of motor vehicles or other movable assets. So one of the things that makes the financing of clean energy unique for us is, one, we were able to identify an opportunity in terms of from a partnership perspective. So we've partnered with an entity called Aston Field Celesa, who have actually been one of the largest solar energy solutions providers in Kenya. So currently they've actually invested in installations worth about they've commissioned installations worth about 2.46 megawatts in Kenya. And based on the opportunities that we saw, one of the largest challenges that they faced was having a financial partner who's able to understand their needs. So based on the same, Zohari was able to consider having a solution primarily targeted at the clean energy finance. This is something new for us that we've actually commenced from this year. And I will just want to take us through what is the unique proposition that we opted to give to this market. So the first thing, as a leasing company, we offer diversified solutions, one of them being an operating lease, where as the leasing company, we take on the assets on our balance sheet. However, for this particular segment of market that we wanted to target, one of the key things that we noted is, if we have to allow entrepreneurs or enterprises to invest in this solution, the biggest challenge they have is the upfront cost of investing in clean energy. And our main focus on clean energy from this year has actually been on solar installations. So two of the things that we identified is, one, there are two underlying assets that drive solar solutions, one being the solar panels, two being the inverters. So as a leasing company, we identified opportunities and realized that we can still be able to target our customers. So the main solution that we offer to our customers is actually a finance lease, where the asset sits on the customer's balance sheet. And the reason why we structured this way is, all the solutions that we offer to our customers tend to derive, we customize our solutions so that they're able to tap into the benefits that our financing solution offers. So through this partnership with Aston Field, we've been able to come up with a unique offering that is able to competitively price our solution. So one of the key benefits that our solution has been offering is, one, from a cash flow benefit. Unlike conventional asset-based financing, our solution is able to offer between 80% to 100% financing of whatever solution it is. The other benefit that our solution has been able to offer from a tax perspective is that whereas lease rentals are fully tax deductible, through a finance lease structure, what we noted, and especially in the Kenyan market, most of the people investing in the solutions are in either manufacturing or some element of production. So based on that, there are certain key tax benefits that they're able to derive where you look at their total sum of investments, solar installations being one of them. So our solution is able to enable the enterprises tap into a tax benefit of up to 100% or up to 150% if they are outside Nairobi or the major towns, which contributes to lowering their cost of investment. The other thing that makes our solution unique, and which also probably Edward insinuated based on the Kenyan market, is prior to September 2016, small and medium enterprises found it easy to access credit because the financial institutions were able to price a risk premium. However, subsequent to September 2016, most financial institutions are skeptical to support small and medium enterprises unless you're able to provide some collateral to secure your facility. However, the facility that Zohari offers is actually a self-securing, where we look at the underlying investments in terms of the solar solution being the facility that secures, actually the asset that secures the facility, which gives an edge to enterprises whose annual turnover would be anything from $50,000 to actually $10 million, because that will be what will be our key focus. Then one of the other things that we noticed from our financing structure, if you see from the illustration, is the biggest challenge we face also as a leasing entity, having known that it's a capital intensive business, is, one, we supplement our equity with debt, typically from banks. So what that means is, though we will want to bring down the cost of investment in solar solution comparative to the local provider to anything from 7 to 10 US cents per unit of power, sometimes our cost goes slightly higher because we have to use a conventional debt. And typically in the Kenyan market, the debt that as a leasing company we are able to tap into, or the equity, will need to give a return within a period of 5 years. However, ideally we'll want a situation where we can access financing or funds that can allow us to even give longer facilities of up to 7 to 10 years in order to bring down the unit cost of power to single digit, probably between 4 to 7 US cents. So our typical structure basically as Zohari is we work very well with partners. Aston Field is our current partner on the solar solution. So if you look at the structure that we adopt is, one, we take up the position as the lessor. So what we do is we purchase the asset on behalf of the customer, and then we offer the customer the right to use the asset for certain rentals, which comparative to the cost of power that they pay is, on average, it reduces their cost of power to about 50%, and it gives them a reliable power solution. So then from when we have that, we also want to ensure that our customers have the benefit of ensuring that in case their solar solutions or the inverters have challenges, that it doesn't affect their tapping of the solar solution. So what we do is we ensure the underlying assets under the solution to be able to safeguard the customers on that. The other thing that we do that is part of our program is we offer maintenance, whereby there's a regular maintenance undertaken through our partner to ensure there's optimal solar production. because solar panels, for instance, will accumulate dust, which will reduce the output. So we also take care of that as part of our solution. So in essence, what the customer does, they're able to enjoy the benefits that they will derive if they invested in the clean energy side. So though we have not underwritten any current transactions directly as Zohari, we have a robust pipeline that we are looking at realizing in the coming financial year. So most of the investments, if you notice, are in food-based, in production-based industries, in the manufacturing sector, food processing and agri-processing, where we've identified the highest requirement from a solar or a production perspective. So what we've realized is if we are able to tap into funds to be able to support these investors over and above our conventional debt or equity sources, then we will be able to tap into a larger database and probably grow that. Currently, if you look at the project size we are targeting in the next 12 months, it's about 4.6 megawatts, but this can actually be scalable once we are able to identify reliable sources of funding. So the main impact that we expect our financing to have in the Kenyan market is, one, through use of clean energy, through installations of the clean energy. One, what it does is the entities are going to significantly supplement the existing power, which is actually through the grid or using other unconventional means to power their operations, so they'll invest in solar solutions. Then the other thing is, one of the benefits that we are giving the entities is, one, we are giving them reliable power source that can actually enable them work for longer hours. So our anticipation is that through our investment, we are going to have entities operating more or less on a 24-hour economy, which is likely to create employment for more people, because most organizations will tend to have a shift sort of system with more people working during your typical 8 to 5, where there's the local provider's power. But with the clean energy investment, what you'll see is they can use the solar installation during the day to power their operations and use the KPLC rate during the night, which also makes their cost of production lower. Then the other thing that we are also doing that has a social impact is, with this package that we have come up with through Aston Field, we'll be able to enable more enterprises access financing opportunities, because currently actually there's been a freeze on, there's actually a decline in access to credit for private entities in the Kenyan market due to the macroeconomic situations, but we believe our solution is opening that. From an economic standpoint, one, we are able to, we will help enterprises reduce their cost of production, which will further be translated to their cost of end products, mainly for the manufacturing entities. And also, one of the things that we are doing is we are lowering the initial cost of investment that these entities need to pay for them to invest in clean energy, and especially the solar solution. Because one of the things that we noted is, though over the life of the installation, the cost of power is reduced, the significant investment upfront tends to discourage more entities from investing, and it actually gives a longer decision-making process in terms from the time where they embrace that they need to invest in a clean energy solution to the point where they actually take up the investment. So we believe our financing solution will help more entities actually be able to close on their target in terms of investing in solar energy. And we hope to also help Aston Field scale from their current 2.56 megawatts to probably target about 10 megawatts in the next 12 months. So thank you for the opportunity.
Paul, your turn next, please.
Sorry, I was still on mute. Thank you, Sanjay. My name is Paul Ohaga, CIO of Kenya Climate Ventures that Edward talked about. And thanks very much for organizing this. It's also a firm belief that if we were to do the things we do and do them well and to grow this space, then a very strong ecosystem is critical, and therefore a chance to connect with peers, partners, and others trying to achieve these noble objectives is therefore very welcome. So KCV is a subsidiary of Kenya Climate Innovation Center, which Edward runs and talked about earlier. And we fit a little bit up in the investment path where they're doing, the things they talked about. And once the businesses need a little bit more money, a little bit more venture capital type funding, then they come to us. So we were set up to really support, do two things. One, support these companies that were maturing, had the strong commercial prospects, had the best promise, were offering innovative climate technology solutions. And we felt that, the ones that we felt had a chance of getting additional funding further down the line. So we primarily the investor, first institutional investor, first institutional partner from that perspective, and trying to bring them up to the bigger, up the value chain, from a capital perspective. We, a pilot, and the objective was to try and build an entity that can begin to demonstrate how this sector can be commercialized and enterprises in here can be built and scaled up. Our primary objectives at this point were to act as a strategic financial partner to these early stage enterprises and to figure out a model that can be replicated in other geographies if we're able to crack it here. And ultimately to try and mainstream climate technology enterprises into the mainstream investment funds. I think climate-themed enterprises were being left out. They were, to a large extent, considered an asset class for grant funding, possibly for some CSR. But our objective is to then pick up the promising ones and demonstrate that they indeed, commercially viable and sustainable opportunities that can be funded just like any other sector gets funded. We looked at climate from a generally broad perspective, and so our portfolio considers enterprises that have innovation around mitigation, but also recognizing that in fact climate change is happening. So while we're trying to stop it, we also look at adaptation and resilience. So broadly, we look at the same things that CIC looks at around energy, clean energy, renewable energy, energy efficiency, but also climate smart agriculture, agribusinesses, and water solutions. We've so far, begun to build a portfolio. We've invested in hydroponic farming system, a company that designs, manufactures, and installs these systems. We've also made an investment into a company that's working in semi-arid areas, has built networks of outgrower farmers there who previously had very little output from their farms, and has introduced a crop that's high value, has changed their lives. They can process this and market abroad, and therefore transfer quite a bit of money from the US or from the more developed economies to these farmers through a commercial interaction. We've also interestingly invested in a biogas operation, again to demonstrate that in fact the sector can be commercialized. Very interesting space. The nexus between agri and energy has been an interesting one for us. So investing in biogas has been quite an interesting venture for us, and we've seen the high commercial potential with the changes in technology, the changes in the potential applications, and the utility of biogas systems has just really gone up by a lot of the innovation that's happening in that space. We've also just closing one in agribusiness as well, and this is more along the bee and honey value chain. So working from all the way from beekeeping to actually getting honey out into the supermarkets and the consumers. So that's the preliminary portfolio being built. since we started operations about 2 years ago, we've looked at over 190 different companies. Our first key activity was to try and define the market, figure out, is there a market for this early stage funding? Are there enterprises that would require this money? Are they organized in a way that they can receive this money, they can contract, they can understand how it works, they can be monitored? And we've actually got a very interesting response. Not all the 190 were ready for investment, but they were all potentially investable, but at various stages. This came from a broad range of sectors. Overall, there was a fair split between energy and agri, about half, and then a little bit of water solutions, and then other sectors that early stage companies that were sort of borderline just coming to look for funding. We've seen opportunities in the solar space. We've seen opportunities in the mini grid space, in the briquetting space, paygo, forestry, agroforestry. So it's really been a broad range of climate-themed enterprises. And what we really focus on is a little bit less of the technology itself, but more of the business model. And most of those that we've seen are bringing innovative business models around technologies that existed, but now they're finding a way that they can be commercialized, they can be made affordable, they can be broken into bite sizes that consumers can actually chew. So it's been an interesting 18 months just seeing what the market has to offer from climate technology enterprises in the region. So what do we do with these enterprises? Our primary work is to work alongside incubators, accelerators, and that is why we are then logically an offshoot from CIC, which is a very strong incubator and acceleration program. And really, this KCB was born out of the need for some of those successful incubatees or people who had received proof of concept to be taken further. And so we pick up from there, and we typically then make an investment in these companies of anywhere up to $500,000, a little bit more than that if needed. We then work with them to do what we require to do to help build the enterprise, whether it's systems, whether it's helping them build teams, whether it's helping them refine their business models, whether it's helping them access consumer finance to enhance their market adoption. We work with them through that. We also strongly help them through their governance and environmental and social issues. We believe that is very critical for them to attract additional funding further down the line. It's becoming very important for companies to be well governed, but more importantly, to also have very strong environmental and social structures and to be compliant in all ways. Then another critical part of how we do make our investments is we work with these companies to access follow-on capital. We recognize our primary role is not necessarily to take them to the end. The amounts of money that we invest cannot necessarily scale them to their full potential. Clean tech can be fairly capital intensive. And so a lot of our funding actually goes to building the enterprise and then trying to help them find additional capital that will then help them scale once we build the platform for scale. So it means down the line, we are looking for follow-on partners, and we have to work with these companies to access those follow-on partners. Our primary instrument now is a convertible debt. We take a very quick view on the businesses. We know some of them have strong equity potential, and so we give a window for that to be proven, and where it's proven and where we have follow-on partners, we then look at possibly taking an equity stake. In some instances, of course, it will be that there's really no follow-on partner that comes within a good time, but the business is nevertheless stable, has some cash flows, and can in fact sustain a debt. And then we would then just convert to keep it as a loan and get it serviced for those companies. So that's how we structure our instrument. The impact we are looking to build on our side, so as not to confuse our mandate, we looked at impact from two perspectives, and we were structured to have the primary impact being one of building enterprises the climate tech space and bring them to the mainstream. And that, we felt if we're able to achieve that, that's a very possible strong impact that we could bring to the market. If the investment model, the business model, the way we make investments and support these investments can be replicated in other geographies, then that would also be a strong impact. If we're able to indeed crowd in additional funding into these businesses, but also into KCB itself, it would be a strong demonstration that in fact we are helping these climate technology enterprises become commercial, become sustainable, and become investable. And that's also a very strong impact. And then just also building strong entrepreneurship and motivating entrepreneurs around the area of climate technology through them seeing funding being available, enterprises growing and being able to scale and being investable. We felt those would be really strong impacts. But in addition, of course, these investments are in the climate technology space, and therefore they have other direct impacts as far as climate is concerned, whether it's access to clean energy. In the climate smart agri space, it's really around food security, in some cases improved incomes that cushion some of these small-scale farmers, for example, from the adverse effects of climate change that is already happening. There's employment creation when we make these investments. Again, through making these investments and supporting these companies, there's a lot of skills enhancement for the entrepreneurs, for the people they employ, and for the suppliers, etc. And ultimately, some of them do have a direct mitigation to climate change by actually mitigating CO2 emissions. So that's really it about Kenya Climate Ventures.
Thank you, Paul. Eugene.
Thank you, Sanjoy and WRI for this opportunity to share a bit of what I do and some of the knowledge I've gained in the market on clean energy pipeline in Kenya. Now, as introduction, I am Eugene Obiero, a senior investment manager who works at Camco Clean Energy, which is a fund manager that primarily runs a fund called the Renewable Energy Performance Platform. And the Renewable Energy Performance Platform was set up by the European Investment Bank and UNEP to support small and medium-sized renewable energy projects in sub-Saharan Africa. It is funded by the UK government through UK Aid, particularly through the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategies. And it looks at investing in projects that are both on-grid and off-grid and are renewable energy focused in sub-Saharan Africa. So that's an introduction on what I do, and I oversee the company's operations in Eastern Africa. Now, I was asked to talk about the clean energy pipeline in Kenya. It's a rather broad topic, and some of my co-panelists have talked about it. I've talked about some of the projects I'm about to mention. So looking at what's available, so you find on-grid renewable energy projects, small and medium-sized projects that range between 0.5 megawatt to 20 megawatts. If you look at the pipeline at the Ministry of Energy, there are probably up to 1,000 megawatts of projects of these sizes in the pipeline. They would range from solar, wind, hydro, geothermal, biomass, and biogas. And they are in different stages of development. Some of them are brownfields, some of them are greenfield projects, while others are about to reach financial close. So for you as an investor, the choice is yours. And the government of Kenya, through the Ministry of Energy, it looks at at inviting investors to participate in grid-connected projects. I'll just give you an example of the Lake Turkana wind power project, which was connected last month. And also there was a 40 megawatt solar project called Garissa, which was also connected last month. And we're finding solar projects are getting to financial close and are about to be connected. Then over to mini grid sector, which are primarily solar PV, wind and hybrid systems, hybrids with battery and diesel. This is a growing sector. And you find in the market companies such as PowerHive, PowerGen, and Renewium, projects that we at CAMCO and the Renewable Energy Performance Platform have looked at. And there are quite a number of projects that are or companies that are developing these sorts of projects. Just to give you a perspective, the Kenyan regulator, the ERC, mapped out the country and gave opportunities in certain locations for investors to put up mini grids and microgrids. And so, if you're a mini grid investor, you come to the regulator, the ERC, Energy Regulatory Commission, and they would be able to tell you you can invest in such a location. And so, and with that, you can prospect sites and eventually build after financing. Then we have solar home systems companies such as M-Copper, B-Box in the market. Kenya was actually a pioneer in this sector on the African continent, and whereby these companies use PAYGO systems with M-Pesa platforms to be able to operate and manage the systems and get customers to pay. And this is a growing sector. As investors, sometimes we see this as a mature market, but there are niche locations in the country where you can still profitably do solar home systems, and there is need for people to invest. And then we have waste to heat business such as briquettes and biogas. We do not, as CAMCO and the REP, don't look at this sector, but this is an opportunity for investors. So there's biogas from the sugar industry in Western Kenya, to briquettes from the tea and coffee industry. So there's an abundance of investment opportunities. What I've not mentioned is a commercial and industrial space where you get rooftop captive power. We have Astonfield in the room here, who are front runners in that aspect, and we are also energy efficiency companies. There are two energy efficiency companies that use innovative means of providing energy efficiency solutions in the market. Yeah, so that's in a nutshell of what the pipeline looks at. Clean energy pipeline looks like in Kenya. Then if you go on to the next slide, in terms of what I have seen in terms of financial returns and the financial structure and an opportunity, we have equity and debt transactions. They range from pure equity to quasi-equity to debt instruments, both early stage and late stage transactions. So there's real opportunity. Ticket sizes from $500,000 all the way to $20 million. And then you get project IRRs from the ranges of 10 to 15%, while you get equity IRRs that are slightly higher, probably from 12 to the mid-20s. So opportunities there, and payback periods of between 4 to 8 years, if you look at that matrix. Then if you look at project development risks, This is something that you as an investor have to be really cognizant of. What the risks that that you may find in other markets, especially developed markets, may not be the ones you find in the local market, probably from an African perspectives. So you find long project development cycles, especially long license approval processes that can wear out capital over a period of time. And you have to be a resilient investor in order to be able to persevere and make your projects and your companies work. There are limitations in project management skills. Few experienced specialists in renewable energy, and this will translate into them being expensive. So you have to be able to factor in these costs. Policy is emergent. So mini-grid policy, for example, is emergent. It's being developed. It's been developed over the last 2 to 3 years. The renewable energy policy has been there a bit longer, 10 years, with the adjustments and the improvements over the last 5 years. Then you have a limited risk mitigation instruments to cover project development risks. However, that is being addressed by organizations such as Garanco and African Guarantee Funds, who are partners of the REP in the market. So you find situations where you can get guarantees for equity investments. These are things you do not get anywhere in the world. You probably get guarantees and insurance covers for debt, but not for equity. But African Guarantee Funds has got specific products that are catered towards clean energy investors in this part of the world. Then environmental and social risks. In Kenya, one of the biggest risks is land. And so that's something you have to be really cognizant of. However, if you do your projects using IFC performance standards as an ENS risk mitigation platform, then you're more likely to have successful projects. And then they also financing risks, so lack of adequate funding in terms of you will get funding that has short tenors and high interest rates. So that's something several players, including people who co-panelists who have talked earlier, have mentioned that they are innovative around the financing to increase the tenors and reduce the interest rates with donor support. So that's the financial landscape. On to the next slide. So looking at social and economic impacts. So you see creation of jobs as economic impacts, both direct and indirect. So direct skills would be probably the operator of the power plants. Indirect would be people providing services to the power plant indirectly. You would find skilled and semi-skilled. Skilled would be the engineering skilled jobs, while semi-skilled would be people providing protection, people cleaning the panels, for example. Then other social and environmental impacts are greenhouse gas emissions. So obviously, clean energy provides reductions in greenhouse gas emissions, and that's something as donors or DFIs we look at. Then increased access to electricity and capacity installed. So anytime a power project comes on, then there's increased capacity. Anytime people are connected, then there's increased access. It may not translate to money, as Kenya Power has recently discovered, but at least it gives the opportunity for people to be connected to power, and this will eventually spur socioeconomic activities, which where they were limited. For example, children can study at night in areas where there were blackouts or there was no power. And you could find people with businesses such as fisheries can power their fridges and store perishable products for onward selling and also for export. So that's in a nutshell my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eugene. And we have the last speaker of the day, Willie.
Thank you, Sanjoy, and thank you, WRI, for this opportunity to participate in this webinar. So my name is Willie Mastermet. I'm an investment manager at Business Partners International here in Kenya, Nairobi. And I'll be speaking today about Business Partners, basically about our principles of SME investing here in Kenya. And maybe just to give a brief background about our business. Business Partners was established in South Africa in 1981. And we've had a track record of success, having over 2,000 active investments. Here in Kenya, we established in 2006, so we have been in Kenya for over 12 years. But we are also in Malawi, Namibia, Rwanda, Uganda, and Zambia. So basically, Business Partners South Africa rolled out and started the international business. So we are the international business for Business Partners South Africa. And brought in some DFIs to invest, including the IFC, including No Fund, including Dune Fund, and also MIDA from Canada, just to mention a few. So Business Partners is a specialized risk finance company. Basically, we offer alternative funding, to SMEs in the country. And as a risk finance company, we would, I could say, we would finance companies that are deemed risky by conventional lenders, such as the banks. In areas where there's minimal collateral, areas where there is limited own contribution by the business owners, but we are able to lend to them. We are able to structure suitable structures for this kind of SMEs. But we are really passionate about funding SMEs. We are for entrepreneurs. Business Partners is on for entrepreneurs. We like to call them square pegs in a sea of round holes that entrepreneurs like to stand out from the environment, and also Business Partners. We try to stand out from the financing sector and come up with creative and innovative ways to support SMEs. We are sector agnostic, but there are some sectors that we do not lend, including on-lending activities, such as microfinances. We don't do real estate, residential, non-profit organizations. The businesses have to be for profit. Primary agriculture, but we do fund secondary agriculture for value addition. And basically what we do is that we provide loans for businesses, term loans for a period of 5 years, between a tune of $50,000 to a maximum of $1 million, and we lend in the local currency. And basically we are not shy to invest in early stage enterprises, but we can also fund expansions and working capital, asset acquisitions, management buyouts and buy-ins, contracts, property acquisitions for property to be used by the business, and basically give suitable structures for those business. The main criteria that we use in determining whether we would fund is really looking at the entrepreneurs behind the business. We check on the entrepreneurial ability of the entrepreneurs, of the business people behind the business. At the same time, we check on the business viability. So as a risk financier, we would definitely look at the risks involved. We do business risk evaluation when checking on viability of the business. We look at the entrepreneur's ability, checking what is the expertise of the entrepreneur, what is their exposure or in that business. But at the same time, we also look at the financial risk. We do not ask for 100% collateral like the banks would, but we do take collateral. But sometimes we take also unsecured positions. An ideal scenario would probably be 50%, 70% cover on the loans that we give. But we also try and come up with innovative structures, taking cession of receivables, a shareholders pledge. Sometimes for contracts, we try and discount on the receivables, especially if the contract employers are, or could say reputable companies. How we do then get our financial returns? As a risk financial, of course, we take more risks and we ask for an incentive for the risks that we take. We would be able to lend 100% and over even when we are not fully secured. We would still be able to lend 100% even when the owner's contribution is low. But we ask for an incentive for those, for the risks that we take. So the way we would then earn our financial return is, an interest rate charge on the loans that we do give. But at the same time, we have a quasi-equity component where we do a revenue participation by taking a royalty fee so as to earn the IRR that we are basically targeting. Some instances we do take a shareholding, but it's not very prevalent in our country. So mostly we would do a term loan with royalty. But in some instances where it makes sense, we would take a minority shareholding in the business with, of course, an exit within the term of the financing, which is the 60 months or the 5 years. What makes us really stand out in our economy and also in other players in this market is that we, apart from just giving a loan, through the term finance, we also have a technical assistance program for our SMEs. So basically, we offer a second loan, which is a non-interest subordinated loan to the main funding. So our technical assistance is we provide 30%, basically 30% of the main fund or the main loan that we give, but is interest free. But this facility is really to improve business processes, to improve efficiencies in the business. And some of the areas that we have funded, in this market are things to do with systems, financial management systems, ERP systems, training of the entrepreneur, training of their business or of their staff members just to enhance capacity. We've been able to automate business like manufacturing processes. We've been able to fund them to take part in business trade fairs. Sometimes even getting consultants or industry mentors just to mentor the businesses so that they can scale. And so what we do is that we actively look for opportunities to invest in, to take a part in a technical assistance program during the due diligence process. And what we have realized is that the businesses that actively take part in technical assistance would actually be more viable, that the businesses would actually perform better, in the long run, that they would actually even meet the obligations in terms of loan repayment. So technical assistance program, we are proud about it. It's something that has really worked in our market, and it's something that makes business partners very unique, definitely in our market as well. Also, when you're looking at a social and economic impact, as I mentioned, we are sector agnostic, and we don't necessarily, focus on green SMEs. But however, we try and have an impact in every deal that we do. We look at the jobs that we create. We have a focus on gender-owned or women-owned businesses, upcountry investments, not only focusing in Nairobi, but looking at upcountry towns. We definitely have to do an environment and social impact assessment for every single deal that we do, checking on environmental impact, occupational health and safety, and also community health and safety as well. Maybe just to mention some of the milestones that or the economic impact that we've had. Over the last 12 years in Kenya, we've touched over 200 SMEs or SME businesses in Kenya. We have created over 1,500 new jobs through investing in those SMEs, while retaining over 6,000 jobs as well. We've had a good impact and a good track record in this market. I'd want to stop there and take any questions if there would be. Thank you, Sanjay.
Thank you. This is the end of our webinar. We're just a couple of minutes past 1 hour. Molly, would you like to take over?
So thank you to all of our speakers. Since we have run over time, if anyone has any questions, we might take one or two and then take the rest offline. You're welcome to email us at the email you received this webinar invite from. So if anyone has any questions, please submit them in the chat box.
Okay.
So we have one question from Divya. What is the biggest challenge that the industry faces in your experience? Divya, is this a question directed at any of the speakers in particular, or? No. So Sandra, I'll leave you to direct the question.
Right. So would one of you, maybe Irene, you want to take, or maybe Willie?
Okay. Definitely for us, one of the main challenges would be, of course, security structures for SMEs. We have had to come up with innovative ways to, to support SMEs even in events where, of course, there's limited collateral. But at the same time, one challenge that I've seen especially in the recent times, is over-reliance on single customers has really been a challenge with SMEs, and just trying to educate them that, hey, you need to diversify your revenue streams. Dependence on, let's say, government kind of contracts or government kind of business. So when the government has a goes slow or is slow on business, the SMEs really get affected. So those are some of the challenges that we have seen. We actively, of course, try to impact our SMEs by also offering, sessions where, just to improve their business acumen, just so that they can be able to, grow sales in a slow economy such as the one we have now in our country. But those are the main challenges that I have seen.
All right.
Great. Well, I think we're going to since we haven't received any more questions, I think we're going to allow people to send their questions offline. Just to let all of the attendees know, we also will be sending around a poll afterwards, so please look out for that in your inboxes. And thanks to everyone for attending. Sandra, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you very much. And if anybody wants to connect with any of the speakers, in the registration page, there is my email and Molly's email. Please feel free to email us and we'll connect you to any of the speakers. Thank you very much for joining. Bye then.